All right, so today we're going to dig into the world of metallurgical coal.
Hmm.
We're doing a deep dive into Alpha Metallurgical Resources
Okay.
and how they're handling this crazy market, especially after Q2 2024.
Right.
We've got the earnings call transcript, their investor presentation, the financial results.
Yeah, we've got a lot to unpack.
It's going to be good.
It's trying to understand how these major players are navigating this market,
Yeah,
which seems to be changing constantly.
absolutely. And you know me, I love to dig into this stuff.
Yes, you do.
So before we get into the nitty-gritty,
Okay.
let's quickly recap who Alpha Metallurgical Resources is.
Okay.
For those who are just joining us for the first time,
Sure.
they're a leading supplier of metallurgical coal in the U.S.
Mhm.
We're talking 20% of the nation's production.
Right. A huge impact.
Huge impact. Hard to overstate that.
Yeah, and I think, really understanding their performance can be a really good signal for how the overall industry is doing, especially now when things are so uncertain with steel demand globally.
Yeah, it's interesting because when global steel demand dips, that obviously impacts the demand for met coal, which then impacts the price.
Exactly. It's a chain reaction.
Chain reaction like dominoes.
Yeah.
And speaking of prices, we've seen benchmarks like the Australian Premium Low Vol.
Right.
That's a high-quality met coal, by the way.
It is.
It's dipped quite a bit.
Yeah.
You know, it's like when the price of your favorite coffee goes down, you notice it.
For sure, you can't ignore those signs. And it's not just one thing,
Right.
The economy globally is like a little bit rocky right now,
Yeah.
and that creates uncertainty. And then on top of that, you've got geopolitical unrest. Think about it, over 60 elections happening around the world this year.
Oh, wow.
Talk about a potential for things to change.
Yeah.
And then you can't forget about what's happening in Ukraine.
Right. It's still ongoing.
Still a factor for sure.
So, yeah, definitely a recipe for volatility.
You could say that again.
But the real question is, how did Alpha actually perform in Q2 in the middle of all of this? How'd they do?
Well, that's what's really interesting, because despite the wild ride, their performance was pretty impressive.
Okay.
Their adjusted EBITDA came in at $116 million.
Which, for our listeners, is essentially a way of looking at their core profitability.
Right, exactly.
So $116 million, not bad.
Not bad at all. And
Okay.
especially considering the pressure that coal prices are under, even just maintaining that level of profitability
Right.
shows that they're making smart moves.
It's like staying afloat when everyone else is struggling to keep their heads above water.
Exactly.
So that's impressive. What about shipping volumes? I know they hit a new record this quarter.
They did a whopping 4.6 million tons of coal shipped this quarter,
That's impressive.
which is a new internal record for them.
Okay, so new record for Alpha.
Yep. And get this, they managed to pull that off even with some planned maintenance downtime.
Wait, so they had planned maintenance,
Yeah.
but still managed to hit a record for shipping volumes.
Exactly.
That's incredible.
Efficiency and planning, I think.
It's like some wizardry going on over there,
Right. But it's not just about moving coal.
right?
It's about doing it efficiently and keeping costs down.
Yeah, especially in this kind of market.
Absolutely. Their Met segment cost of coal sales actually dropped to $109.31 per ton.
Oh, okay, now that's huge.
It is.
Lowering your costs when everything seems to be going up.
Absolutely. It's not easy to do.
No, it's not. So I think we're starting to see why everyone's saying Alpha is demonstrating operational strength.
Yeah, it's more than just a buzzword. They're
Yeah.
actually delivering.
They're walking the walk.
They are.
So how are they doing it? What's their secret?
Well, from what we're seeing in the reports and hearing from their leadership, it seems like a lot of it comes down to their team.
Yeah.
Andy Eitzen, their CEO, he talked a lot about the dedication and the hard work of their employees.
Okay.
And when you think about it, over 4,000 people all working towards the same goal.
Wow.
That's a powerful force.
That is powerful. It's like a whole fleet of ships instead of just one.
Exactly.
Teamwork makes the dream work.
It really does in this case.
But it can't just be teamwork, right?
Oh, you're absolutely right. They've been incredibly strategic in other areas, too.
Like what?
Like how they're dealing with suppliers, for example.
Okay, suppliers in this market, that's got to be tough.
Jason Whitehead, their president and COO, he actually described the process of renegotiating some of their pricing agreements as grueling.
I can only imagine.
Right. But they were able to secure some better terms.
Okay, so they're playing hardball.
They're not afraid to fight for every advantage they can get.
I like it.
They're being proactive.
Yeah, you can't just sit back and just accept whatever the market throws at you.
Exactly.
What else stood out to you about how they're staying ahead?
One thing I found really interesting was their focus on in-house manufacturing.
Oh, yeah. Tell me more about that.
So essentially, they're using their own capabilities to make their equipment last longer and be more adaptable.
So they're not relying on external suppliers as much.
Exactly. Which is a smart move in this environment.
It's brilliant reducing reliance on outside factors,
Yeah.
especially right now.
Exactly.
They're in control.
They are.
I'm loving this. They're weathering the storm and then some.
It seems like it.
What do you think?
I think so. And what makes it even more interesting is how they're using this experience to shape their strategy for the future.
Yeah, with all the uncertainty, how are they even planning for what's next?
Right. We'll get into that.
So Alpha's doing well, holding strong.
Mm-hmm.
But with all this uncertainty, how are they even planning for the future? What's their game plan?
Well, it seems like their strategy is really wait and see.
Okay.
Instead of making any big drastic changes, they're focused on what they call protecting the franchise.
Okay, so like shoring up their defenses.
Exactly. Making sure they're in a strong position no matter what happens.
I like that, battening down the hatches.
Exactly.
So how does that actually play out? Like, what are they doing?
Well, first off, they're really focused on maintaining a strong balance sheet.
Right, like we talked about, their total liquidity went up by almost 25% in Q2.
Exactly. That's a really good.
It's like having a nice emergency fund.
Yeah.
Exactly. Just in case.
They're also being very cautious about capital returns for now.
Okay, so like hitting pause on things like share buybacks?
Exactly. They've paused share buybacks for the time being.
Which makes sense when the future is a little unclear.
Right. Better to hold on to that cash for now.
Yeah, exactly.
Just have that financial flexibility
Makes sense.
if things change again, which,
Right, who knows?
Exactly.
So it seems like they're really playing it safe, which honestly, in this economy,
Right.
seems like a very good strategy.
I think so, too.
It's that whole slow and steady wins the race.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
And it seems like that's their mentality because on the earnings call, Andy Eidson, their CEO, actually said, "This too shall pass."
Oh, I love that.
Talking about the current market down.
He's got a point, though. We've gone through tough times before, and we always come out the other side.
It's true. And met coal is still a key ingredient in steelmaking. And the world still needs steel.
The world always needs steel. Exactly.
So even if there are some bumps in the road, that demand is most likely going to be there in the long run.
Yeah, it's always going to come back.
Yeah.
So it seems like until then, Alpha is really focusing on what they can control.
Right.
Like running a tight ship, keeping costs down.
Mm-hmm. Operational excellence is what they're calling it.
There you go. And being financially smart.
Exactly.
Those are the things they can actually do something about.
Exactly. And they're also not just sitting around waiting for the market to recover.
Right. Are they looking for opportunities?
Yeah, they are.
Okay, good.
They're keeping their eyes open.
So what should people be watching for? What are the key things that could impact Alpha and the met coal market in general?
Well, in the short term, definitely keep an eye on their full year 2024 shipment guidance.
Okay.
They actually reaffirmed their targets, which to me,
So they're confident,
yeah, they're still confident in their ability to hit those targets.
even with the choppy waters.
Exactly.
What else?
Another thing is that they've already started talking to North American customers about contracts for 2025.
Okay, so they're already thinking ahead.
They are. It's still early, but it shows that they're thinking long term.
That's a good sign.
They're not just reacting, they're being proactive.
I like that being proactive is always good.
It is.
Now, long term, what are the big trends? What could change the game for Alpha and the met coal industry as a whole?
One of the biggest factors is global steel demand.
Right, of course.
As we said, it's a huge driver for met coal. And there are some interesting things happening.
Like what?
Well, for example, in India, there's been a little bit of a pickup in demand post-monsoon,
Okay, that's interesting.
which, could be a good sign for the global market.
India's a big player, for sure.
Huge. So any increase in demand, there's definitely something to watch.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, there's Alpha's own investments to consider.
Oh, yeah. What are they doing?
They have a new low-vol coal mine, Kingston Sewell. It's supposed to open in late 2025.
Right, I was reading about that.
Low-vol coal is in high demand right now.
It is very much so.
So having that new source could give them a real edge.
Absolutely. It's a premium product these days.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, that new mine could be a real game changer for them.
For sure. And then there are the share buybacks we were talking about.
Oh, right, yeah.
That they've paused for now.
Exactly.
It'll be interesting to see when and if they decide to start those up again.
For sure. That'll be a big signal to investors.
Right, because right now they're holding back.
Exactly.
But if they start those back up again, it'll be like, okay,
They're confident.
yeah, we're ready to go.
Exactly.
It's all about timing, right?
It really is.
When is the right time to make your move?
Exactly. But for now, it seems like they're all about being careful, watching the market, and focusing on what they do well.
It's a good strategy.
I think so, too.
Playing the long game.
Exactly.
Oh, I'm impressed with how they're weathering this and how they're thinking ahead.
Me too. They're a really good example of a company that's not just surviving right now, but using this time to get even stronger.
Totally. Using it to their advantage.
Exactly.
You know, it's wild when you think about it.
What's that?
We're talking about met coal, something that's been around forever.
Right.
And it's still at the heart of this massive global industry that's constantly changing.
Absolutely. It really makes you wonder what the future holds for these companies.
It really does. Like Alpha, how do they fit into all of this?
It's a great example of how important it is to have that long-term vision.
Right.
Combined with really smart, efficient operations.
Yeah.
It can make all the difference, even when the market's going crazy.
Totally. They're not just riding the wave. They're like, hey,
driving the boat.
We're going to steer this thing.
Exactly.
So before we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one big thing you think our listeners should keep in mind as they watch all of this play out?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Uh,
I think the biggest question mark, the thing that's really going to impact everything we've talked about, is how this push for sustainability is going to change how we make steel.
Oh, that's a great point.
Because we're seeing this huge global shift towards greener solutions in every industry.
Yeah.
And steel's no different.
So how do met coal producers like Alpha fit into that?
Right.
Like, we're all supposed to be going green. So does met coal even have a place in that future?
It's the big question, will they have to adapt?
Right.
Will they have to evolve? I mean, there's no easy answer.
No, there isn't. And it's not even just up to them, right? It's technology. It's government policies.
Exactly.
It's consumer demand. I mean, everybody wants to be green these days.
For sure. It's a lot of moving pieces.
So many.
And it'll be really interesting to see how it all shakes out.
It will. So are we going to see a complete switch to different ways of making steel? Or will met coal still be in the mix? How will companies like Alpha deal with all of this?
$1 million questions.
They really are. And those are the questions that are going to shape the future of the entire industry.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But that's what makes it so interesting, right?
It does.
Being informed, keeping up with these trends, and just watching how it unfolds, it's fascinating.
It is. We don't have all the answers right now, but at least we're asking the right questions.
Exactly.
And that's the first step.
It is knowledge is power, right?
That's what they say.
That's what they say.
Well, hopefully our listeners got a better understanding of the met coal market from this deep dive.
Yeah.
The good, the bad, the ugly.
The challenges and the opportunities.
Exactly. And who knows what the future holds.
No one knows.
But it's going to be interesting to see.
It will be.
That's for sure. Well, thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
And for everyone listening out there, we'll be back soon with another deep dive into a new topic.
See you too.